Welcome to this special deep dive on Corner Coffee with Cricket. This is Ava. They say that when life gets heavy, you should reach for your hooks. For a long time, I thought knitting was just a way to pass the time, but I've come to realize it's how I navigate the sharp points of life. It's the rhythm of the needles and the weight of the wool that allow me to process the things that are too heavy to carry on their own. In this episode, we're going row by row into the craft, not just as a hobby, but as a lifeline. We're talking about the focus, the cognitive distraction, and the way a simple stitch can ground you when the world feels out of alignment. So grab your coffee, pick up your project, and let's get into the work.
So I want to start with a question for you and, be honest with yourself here. When the world gets too loud, those days, your brain feels crowded, the news is a lot, your to-do list is just endless. And you feel that physical pressure. What do? What's your default? Do you retreat, pull the covers up, or do you make something?
It's such a fundamental question, isn't it, about how we process overwhelm?
It really is.
We tend to think of coping as something passive, taking a nap, zoning out.
Shutting down.
Exactly. It's about shutting down. But there's this really compelling idea that the best way to handle that emotional weight isn't stillness. It's active. It's tactile.
Exactly. And that is, that's the core of what we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into this really beautiful, poignant piece. It's titled, When Life Gets Heavy, I Reach for My Hooks.
It's by Cricket Fox. If you're in the fiber arts world, you've probably heard of her. Corner Coffee with Cricket or the Sock Sorority podcast.
For sure.
And we should probably clarify, when she says hooks, she's not talking about fishing.
Crochet hooks, knitting needles. And this is a really important point up front, this deep dive is not a how-to. We are not going to be debating, merino wool versus acrylic.
Not at all. This is a case study on grief.
Yes.
It's a look into Cricket's journey of learning to live, to just function, after losing her husband, Phil.
And she lays out this incredible framework for how creative work can be an anchor. An anchor when the emotional storm is just, too rough to stand up in.
What struck me right away is that she doesn't just say, oh, knitting makes me feel better.
Right, that's such a platitude.
It is. She actually breaks down the cognitive mechanisms at play. She uses her craft in two completely contradictory ways to solve two very different problems.
That was my big takeaway, too, this dual nature of the craft. So, okay, let's get into that first one. Okay. She calls knitting her saving grace, but the first way she uses it is what I'd almost call autopilot mode. She talks about having projects that are specifically designed so she cannot think.
Right. She mentions the garter stitch, which for anyone who doesn't knit is the most basic stitch there is. It's just knit every row. It's simple. It's rhythmic. And she says she can do it by feel.
Just knit. Yeah. That's the mantra.
But think about what's happening neurologically there. By feel. She's talking about muscle memory. When you practice something to that level, the activity moves out of the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that's worrying, grieving, obsessing.
Okay.
And it moves into the basal ganglia.
So she is literally bypassing the part of her brain that hurts.
In a way, yeah. She says this helps when she cannot think. It's a physiological override. When you're in deep grief, your executive function is it's offline.
Oh, yeah.
Deciding what to have for dinner feels impossible. But the garter stitch, it doesn't ask for decisions. It just asks for rhythm.
It's almost like meditation, but without the pressure of, clear your mind.
The motion clears it for you.
It's a shut-off valve.
Precisely. The hands are moving so the mind can rest. But then, and this is where her experience is so nuanced, she flips the entire script. Because sometimes checking out isn't the solution. Sometimes the problem isn't that you can't think, it's that you can't stop thinking about the wrong things.
The spiral, that loop. We've all been there.
We've all been there. And this brings us to mechanism 2, cognitive distraction. She contrasts that mindless knitting with these highly complex projects, patterns where she needs to, I'm quoting here, watch what I do, paying attention to, and counting each stitch.
I love this part. She's so specific about why she does it. She says she uses them to change her thinking. It's intentional. It's not just, I feel like making a sweater. It's, I need to get out of my head, and this complex pattern is the ladder out.
It's a bandwidth issue, really. Our working memory can only hold so much. So if a pattern makes you count, knit 2, purl 2, yarn over, you're filling up every available slot. There's literally no room left for the grief to get in.
You're crowding it out.
You're crowding it out.
So it's like she's self-prescribing the project based on her mental state. If she's exhausted, she goes for muscle memory.
And if she's anxious, she goes for cognitive load.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
She mentions feeling overwhelmed with life lately, and she clarifies it's not just the big grief, but the weight of trying to be okay. That line just, wow.
The exhaustion of appearing functional.
Yes. Trying to be okay is a full-time job. And she has this great little story about how well this cognitive distraction works. She'll sit down, planning to just work a few rows.
And then hours have just disappeared.
Yes. And she mentions the memory of Phil, of her husband, telling her it was time to head to bed.
Ugh, that detail just stopped me. Because on one hand, it's a perfect description of a flow state where you lose track of time. But on the other, it brings Phil right into the room with her.
Let's talk about Phil, because this piece is, technically about knitting. But Phil is. He's everywhere.
He's the presence of the absent. There's this concept in grief theory called continuing bonds. The idea is you don't move on from someone, you move forward with them. And Cricket does this so beautifully.
She has this moment where she's looking at an old post, and she says she's reminded of how much Phil's support shaped my work.
And I love that she paints a real picture of that support. It wasn't just him quietly admiring her work. He had opinions.
He did. I kind of laughed at this part. She says Phil used to fuss at her.
Such a great word.
It is. He'd fuss because things were always going out the door.
Meaning she was giving it all away.
Right. She's pouring all this love and labor into these beautiful things, and then poof, they're gone. And Phil's like, hey, can we maybe keep something? And she admits it. She says he is right in that statement.
It's such a human moment. But that little critique from him actually led to a specific project that becomes this huge metaphor in the story. Because he was right, she started making something for them.
The 2 blankets.
2 blankets for their bed. But listen to how she describes making them. It wasn't easy. She says they were hard to hold during the summer because of the size and the heat.
Oh, anyone who knits or crochets can feel that sentence in their bones. Wrestling with a giant wool blanket in July is just... it's heavy, it's hot.
But the metaphor there, hard to hold.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Grief is hard to hold, memories are heavy, and there's a seasonality to what we can bear. She says, now that fall is setting in, I can get them out again.
That is such a powerful idea. For anyone grieving, that's permission to just put it down. She didn't force herself to suffer through the heat. She waited for the season to change.
Exactly. It's a lesson in pacing. You don't have to carry the heaviest parts of your loss every single day. If it's summer, emotionally, it is okay to put the blanket away for a while. It'll be there.
And when she picks it back up, Phil is right there in it. She writes, I'm reminded of how much Phil's eye for detail and his occasional stitches are woven into the very fabric of my work.
His occasional stitches, that detail is just, it's lovely. It implies his influence is so strong. It's like he physically touched the work.
It changes the whole idea of who made it, doesn't it? She's creating them, but not alone. She's collaborating with his memory.
And that brings us to the other side of her crafting. So, we have the blankets she kept. But she admits she still has that powerful drive to give things away.
These surprise gifts for people who least expect them.
Yeah.
And this is where you see her generosity just shining through the grief. It would be so easy to turn inward, but she's projecting outward.
You know, generosity can be a profound way to heal. It reestablishes your agency. When you lose someone, you feel powerless. But making something and giving it away, that is an exertion of power. You are causing a positive emotion in someone else.
And she has this ritual for it that's, well, it's kind of magical. I found this so heartwarming. She says before she packs a gift to send, do you remember what she does?
I do. She gives it extra hugs.
Yes. She physically wraps her arms around the blanket before she puts it in the box.
And it might sound a little whimsical, but look at her intent. She says, if the recipient is feeling down, they can just wrap the blanket around them and hopefully feel okay. She is trying to transmit a physical sensation, a hug, through an object.
It totally transforms the object. It's not just a blanket anymore. It becomes a proxy for care.
And this connects all the way back to her parents. She says yarn is her connection to them.
Right. They taught her not just how to make things, but how to properly care for projects so they can last a lifetime.
Last a lifetime. That phrase is so key. We live in such a disposable world. But Cricket is operating with what I'd call an heirloom mindset.
An heirloom mindset. I like that. Unpack that for me.
It means she's creating with the future in mind. She says, I always secretly hope that it becomes a family heirloom. She isn't just killing time. She is knitting a legacy. She's trying to create permanence in a world that has shown her very painfully, how impermanent life can be.
And she backs this up with her own experience, passing down gifts from her own mom and dad to her daughters.
And that's the payoff, isn't it? She says her daughters understand what goes into creating a special gift. The value has been transmitted. The chain continues.
Her parents taught her. She teaches her daughters, not just the craft, but the value of the craft.
She says it's about putting part of myself in each gift. And if you feel like you've been hollowed out by loss, proving you still have enough self left to give away, that is a massive assertion of life.
It's proof of existence. I am still here, and I can still make you warm.
Exactly. Now, I don't want to make it sound like this is all heavy and sad. There's clearly a lot of joy for her in the process itself. She talks about the hunt.
The joy of the hunt.
Yeah.
Looking for patterns. I mean, anyone with a Pinterest board knows this feeling.
The endless scroll of possibilities.
Yes.
And she admits she looks at patterns she knows she'll never even try. Why do you think that is?
It's fantasy, isn't it? It's imagining a future version of yourself who does have time for that ridiculously intricate thing. It's about potential.
It's future-oriented. Grief locks you in the past, looking at what you lost. Looking for patterns is an act of looking forward. Even if you never make it, the possibility that you could implies there's a tomorrow.
And she talks about the mix, too. The challenging ones, the simple ones, putting her own twist on them.
And shopping for the right yarn and correct needles. It's all part of this ritual of preparation.
You know, it strikes me that this entire process, from hunting for patterns to the shopping to the stitching to the hugging, it's all a way of structuring time.
Yes.
When you're grieving, time gets weird.
Yeah.
It loses its shape. But a project gives time a shape.
That's a brilliant observation. A project has a linear narrative, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Grief doesn't always feel like it has an end. So finishing a blanket gives you a sense of completion that the rest of your life might not be offering at that moment.
And realizing that Phil is part of that timeline, that his memory isn't an obstacle, but a companion.
Weaving him in. That's the metaphor she used. It suggests grief isn't something you get over. It's something you incorporate. You knit it into the pattern of your life until it becomes part of the texture.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We started with this idea of overwhelm, and we looked at how Cricket uses her hooks as a survival strategy.
Right. We saw the muscle memory mode, that Garter Stitch by feel, which gives an exhausted brain a reset.
And then the cognitive distraction mode, the complex stuff, which acts as a firewall against anxiety.
We talked about the heaviness of those two blankets and how the physical weight mirrored the emotional weight.
Teaching her it's okay to put things down when it's summer.
And then how she moved from that heaviness into connection, the hugs method, using generosity to reclaim her power.
And finally, the legacy. The heirloom. The idea that these objects are vessels for memory, it reframes the whole idea of arts and crafts.
It really does. It makes you realize that when you see someone knitting, they might be doing a lot more than just making a scarf. They might be holding themselves together, stitching their world back into one piece.
Cricket actually asks a question in the text that I think is the perfect place for us to land. She asks, do you still have that handmade special gift to pass down to the next generation?
It's a haunting question, in a good way. It makes you think about what we're preserving. Are we just accumulating stuff, or are we creating meaning?
So here's our final thought for you to chew on. When life gets heavy for you, because it will, what are your hooks?
And it doesn't have to be yarn. Maybe it's woodworking or gardening, getting your hands in the dirt. Maybe it's baking. But what is that active, tactile process that lets you reset?
And beyond that, what parts of yourself are you weaving into the lives of people around you? Are you creating heirlooms, physical or otherwise, that will keep you present long after you're gone?
Are you creating something that can be hard to hold sometimes, but ultimately provides warmth? That's the goal.
Heavy stuff, but good stuff. We hope this deep dive gave you a little warmth to wrap around yourself today.
Just like one of Cricket's blankets.
Exactly. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Take care.
As we cast off this row, remember that the projects we hold in our hands are often holding us together, too. Whether you are working through a complex pattern or just finding peace in a simple garter stitch, those hooks are there to catch you when life feels heavy. Thank you for spending this time with me in the shop today. I hope you found a little bit of rhythm and a lot of comfort in the craft. Until next time, keep your stitches even, your coffee warm, and never be afraid to reach for your hooks when you need them most. On behalf of Cricket, This is Ava, and this has been a deep dive on Corner Coffee with Cricket. I'll see you at the next row.